Hi, I'm Jerry Colber, co-creator of the hit science shows Brain Games and Brainchild. I'm here to tell you about my new podcast, Who Smarted, which gives listeners a big whiff of science and history while making learning funny for kids and families. With 3 15-minute episodes a week on lots of cool topics, Who Smarted is perfect for car rides, bedtime, homeschooling, and classrooms. If you love laughing and learning, check out Who Smarted wherever you get podcasts or at whosmarted.com.
Stoicism. It's all about being resilient and self-reliant, right? It's all about being a man, needing no one, and having no emotional response to the external world whatsoever, right? Well, if that's what you think Stoicism is, and you'd like to learn what actual, capital S, Stoicism is, the ancient Greek and Roman philosophy and virtue ethics framework centered around developing a good character and service to the cosmopolis, then hi, I'm Tanner Campbell, and I'd like to invite you to subscribe to my podcast, Practical Stoicism. Every weekday, I release a new episode focused on actual Stoicism, and if that's your thing, I hope you'll check it out. You can find Practical Stoicism wherever you already listen to podcasts or at stoicismpod.com.
Time for you to show me the money. Hello and welcome to episode number 215 of Tennis Podcast, the podcast where we guess and dissect top 10 lists on a different topic every week. I'm joined by a different guest sidekick host every week, and this week that is the one and only Amy Nicholson, host of the amazing film review podcast Unspooled. Amy, thanks for being here.
Nick, it is my pleasure. Hello.
Hello, how are you today?
I'm okay. I just had to do a whole live radio show for a few hours where we all argued about the Oscars. So now I'm limbered up. I'm punchy.
Ah, yeah. What's your biggest Oscar hot take?
My biggest Oscar hot take is that every year I'm sort of railing that like the most ambitious, innovative film that's going to push the medium forward never gets nominated or maybe nominated for Best Original Screenplay and usually loses. And this year it's The Frontrunner. So I'm loving that. I love the Everything Everywhere momentum. It feels like this is the film that has like activated 16-year-olds and like, oh, cool. I've only grown up in boring ass Marvel movies. I didn't know movies could do this.
Oh.
So I think it's a good time for the movies, and all the old cranks that I love who I do radio with were like, this year sucks.
First of all, for me personally, it is so refreshing to hear someone even like vaguely shit on the Marvel movies, because I am Marvel fatigued to the core. And yeah, so we're going to hear a lot of your hot takes today, I think. But let me tell the folks a little more about you. Amy, you are an accomplished film critic. You're a film critic for KPCC's Film Week. You have film review credits in LA Weekly, The New York Times, Variety, many more. You've served on the jury for Sundance and South by Southwest. You've screened submissions for Sundance, AFI, and the Los Angeles Film Festival. And you also wrote the book, literally, on Tom Cruise. So after all that, you better not disappoint us today.
I am so excited to talk about Tom Cruise. I'm really excited to talk about Tom Cruise. That's what we're doing. We're talking about Tom Cruise. I love having
Yes, we are.
Tom Cruise expertise in my back pocket. It's a really useful thing as a film critic.
Yeah, well, and it's very useful today, I hope. And I'm glad that you didn't write this book, the book on Tom Cruise, and thought, I'm done. I don't need to talk about Tom Cruise anymore. You still get excited to talk about Cruise, it sounds like.
Well, what's funny is the very last part of my book in the epilogue is like, man, I really want Tom Cruise to go back to doing ambitious, cool things, but it looks like he's doing Top Gun 2. Oh.
Yeah.
And he did. So I don't think he likes my book very much, but I stand by all of my opinions in it.
No, I feel that same way. Well, I won't spoil it. We'll get into it. But real quick, before we get into Tom Cruise, I just want you to tell the listeners just how you became a film critic officially, what you look for in a good movie. Just kind of tell us your background and kind of what are you looking for in a good movie? I guess I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, totally. I think what I look for when I watch a movie is how does this movie rank up against its own ambitions? You know, if you're making Cocaine Bear, then you know that you're making a trashy movie about a bear that does cocaine. Will you deliver on that? Like, I don't want to live in a world where critics are walking around like any movie that's about a bear that does cocaine can't possibly be good, because it can.
Yeah.
It just has to live up to the ideals of being the best Cocaine Bear movie that it ever could be.
Yeah.
I didn't think this one was. Hopefully we'll get another Cocaine Bear or maybe a acid alligator. I don't know.
Well, I think we need to explore every drug paired with every animal combination. And in fact, you could do a whole Noah's Ark thing where there's 2 animals of every type and there's a giant bag of drugs that gets broken into by the animals and they're all on drugs. during Noah's Ark. Sorry, I'm running with this now.
I think somewhere Ruben Östlund is like, that should have been Triangle of Sadness. I should have gone with animals high on that ship and not just Woody Harrelson puking everywhere.
Well, tomato.
But yeah, that's it. I just want stuff that I think challenges itself and challenges us. And I like stuff that takes big risks, even if it fails. I think that's always my soft spot. I liked Babylon.
Really?
Big swing. Big swing.
Yeah.
4 of the best scenes of any movie this year are in Babylon.
Really? Okay.
And,
wow.
you know, I say this as a person who hated La La Land. So I like stuff that tries to do something big and stuff that isn't focus group to death.
Something I'll say about you, because I listened to your podcast and I've read some of your reviews preparing for today. And I think you're a film critic that like is not easily predictable. What's going to get a good review versus a bad review? Whereas there's some critics, I listened to your episode on Midsommar today, and there was a critic, Rex something.
Rex Reed. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just felt like, based on the way you guys were talking about him, that you just knew what he was going to say before or the gist of what he was going to say.
Oh, if there's a woman and Rex Reed doesn't think that she's worth being in his bed, Rex Reed's not going to like a movie.
Yeah.
If Rex Reed doesn't want to bone the lead, then forget about it.
I think that's all too common in Hollywood, but
yeah.
I say that to make the point about your reviews, that they seem much more, I guess you can't pin it down what Amy's going to think of a movie, when I think that's good.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I feel like the only fair way to judge a movie is what it wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
You know? Like, because who am I to be like, here's one rule of cinema? But you can see, every time you watch a film, I think you can see the movie it thought it was making. And did it get there?
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, we're going to put your education to the test today because we're talking Tom Cruise performances. This is your list, Amy. As a professional film critic, you have curated the list of what you feel are the top 10 best Tom Cruise performances. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything you want to tell me about your list? Or just maybe fill the listeners in on kind of your general thoughts on Tom Cruise?
I will, yeah. About 10 years ago, I guess, Kaida Cinema asked if I wanted to write a book on Tom Cruise. And it, startled me because I hadn't really contemplated him in a lot of depth. I think if you'd asked like me 10 years ago, what do I think of Tom Cruise? I would be like, I guess he's a hell of a movie star, but he doesn't act and he's always the same in every performance. And he's like, oh, it's me, Mr. Cocky All-American. And I thought, when they pitched this to me, and they're like, what would your take on Tom Cruise be? I was like, oh, my take would be like, how does this guy with no talent make himself a blockbuster success? And I was like, that'll be interesting, right? But then when I went back and really watched all of his movies very critically, the first thing that struck me is I think we as a culture have a huge gap between how we remember a Tom Cruise movie, what happens in that movie, and what the movie actually is. That there's this way that he has of being so powerful that his movies get reduced to this iconic image of cool. And almost his coolness and his movie starness has overshadowed what a terrific actor he has been his whole career. All the effort he's put into trying to build up a repertoire of, I find, to be really diverse performances, and how we never, ever notice how much acting he's doing. And I think it's really frustrating. I think the frustration of being Tom Cruise is that you have been acting your ass off since you were a kid, being really serious about it, and nobody cares. And now you're in a period where you're just like, well, I guess I'll just keep trying to kill myself over and over again on camera because nobody takes me seriously as an actor. And so that is my Tom Cruise-ness. I really stand by the fact that he is a terrific performer who I would say challenged himself more than almost any movie star in our modern era has in his early years of his career. Right. Really admirable, really carries Hollywood on his back, really should be what a movie star is in our modern era. And I feel like has never really gotten his due, which is weird to say about the most famous actor of all time.
Yeah, who's worth close to $1 billion. And he's one of the highest grossing actors of all time, one of the most well known. I have mixed feelings on Tom Cruise as a person, but I don't dispute that his power as an actor. And I'm excited to talk today because since we're talking we're not talking box office with Tom Cruise today. We're talking performance, so the critical performance. And that excites me because I don't get excited about Top Gun necessarily, even though I know it was well received, or Mission Impossible. I like more of the Minority Report and some of that stuff. And my number one guest that I'll save. But yeah, and it's funny you mentioned trying to kill himself on camera. I'd heard that before, that he does his own stunts, but in preparing for today, I was watching some stuff. And the shit he's doing for like right now, he's filming a Mission Impossible movie. And he did this insane stunt that even a stunt person would be nervous in doing. And he did it by himself. He's 60 years old on a motorcycle. Crazy. I wouldn't do it.
No, and even to bring up Minority Report, that movie, there's a moment, where he's like trapped underwater hiding from the flying robot thing that's after him. And
we've all been there.
We've all been there. And he gives himself away in the movie by like one little air bubble escaping from his nostril. Do you remember that scene?
Yeah.
And Steven Spielberg was like, we can just CG that little bubble. It's fine. And Tom Cruise was like, no, I'm going to learn how to hold my breath and then just let one air bubble go. Like, that's the kind of stunt work he does.
Yeah,
Even the stuff you think must be CG because it's so little, he's going to teach himself how to do it.
It's interesting that an actor would go through that trouble when the average person is just going to assume it's CGI anyway.
I know.
Right? So, like, you don't even get the credit for doing it, but that's not what it's about for him, I think. But anyway. Okay, well, should I start guessing?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me give you a guess that I think will not be in the top 10. And that is, what's his name in this movie? Les, maybe? It's in Tropic Thunder when he...
Les Grossman?
Is that on here? Yeah.
Oh, it's up here, and it's high.
Oh my God. Because, like, I love him in that movie, but I didn't think it would get kind of the respect that, some of his other roles did. So, okay, is it in the top 5?
It is in the top 5.
Wow, it's not number 1.
It's not number 1, but it is in the top 5.
Okay, number 3.
No.
4.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Les Grossman in Tropic Thunder. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, I find this movie to be fascinating, both as like a moment in Tom Cruise's career and just as a great performance. Because Les Grossman, Tropic Thunder, he's playing this studio boss. He's crass. He's gross. He's so foul-mouthed, grabbing his crotch, dancing. It's a kind of performance that Tom Cruise had never done up until that point and kind of has never done again. Like, he does not do balls-out comedy.
No.
He doesn't do, like, in-your-face, aggressive humor. And he does here for the very first time in his life, and he kills it. And I find this to be really important for a couple of reasons. Like, one, Tropic Thunder is coming out at probably the lowest point of Tom Cruise's popularity. And I'm sure as we have this whole top 10 conversation, we're going to go and chart like the rise and fall of like climbing up the Top Gun years, the very long high plateau years of the 90s, and then the Oprah plummet, and then everything that happened after that, and then the rebuilding,
I was going
right?
to say, this is post-Oprah, when he was on the couch on Oprah. Yeah.
Yeah. Couch on Oprah. I have a whole series of thoughts on that we can or cannot get into. But so Oprah is 2005. When Oprah happens, he has up until that point had this long-standing relationship with Paramount. And he's always had a partnership there. He's had a studio on the lot. But this Oprah thing, this kind of bad mojo energy around him, the Matt Lauer thing, where he was like, Brooke Shields shouldn't have postpartum depression, all of that stuff. The Scientology was getting too much for people. The Katie Holmesness of it all. And so the head of Viacom, Sumner Redstone, kicked him off the lot. Was like, you're bad juice for us. And it was a real betrayal to Tom Cruise because at that point, I think he alone was responsible for like a third of the box office gross of Paramount. He was their guy. And he had not, by the numbers, actually even failed them. Because you might remember that like the couch dumping came in his press tour for War of the Worlds. And so War of the Worlds was actually his biggest opening weekend ever. Like none of the couch stuff hurt him financially, but the vibe hurt him. So Tropic Thunder is really important because like not only is it kind of this like absolutely out of left field performance for him, something he's never done. He does a few things that are really particular. He like doesn't tell anybody he's in the movie. If you might remember, he's not in the credits. Right. He's not in the cast list. Like you don't know that's Tom Cruise until that movie's over. So it's like, oh, you think you're mad at me? You think you're mad at the number one star? Cool. Don't even advertise me. I'm going to sneak in here, make you love me, and then announce that it's me because he's pretty unrecognizable. But the second part is that Les Grossman is like vengeance on Sumner Redstone. It's him being like, oh no, I want to play that character is what he told Ben Stiller. And I want to make him gross and I want to make him horrible. And it's his vengeance on him.
Yeah.
And I love that about it. Just him being like, you come at me, I will come at you. And like his detail work in that movie is just so funny. Like he specifically told Ben Stiller that he wanted to have big hands. Like that was his whole thing. He's like, you got to give me big hands. So he's wearing like fake hands in that movie, you know, and kind of just like jamming them at the camera. His dancing is just sort of off the cuff. Nobody knew he could dance like that. I love it. So Tropic Thunder, number 4 for me.
This Tom Cruise role has always stood out to me so much because it's so out of left field and because I saw this movie in theaters. So I saw it when it first came out and I didn't know Tom Cruise was in it. And so it's like this weird surprise when he shows up. And I recognized him like before the credits. Yeah, I did.
I did not. Good for you.
Side note, not a side note, but whatever. Tropic Thunder, I think, is an excellent movie. And I've seen it in the news lately of people, how do I put this, like trying to criticize it for like its quote tone deafness on, you know, because Robert Downey Jr. is in blackface in that movie. But I think that's the point.
Yeah, the point is that character should not be in blackface and everybody's upset with him.
Yes.
So it's weird. You're on the same side of them as the movie, actually, if you think that that's uncomfortable and crazy. And it's a really good Robert Downey performance, too. It's really good.
And that's the other thing I kind of mentioned my Marvel displeasure earlier. I feel like the Iron Man thing, I mean, good for him. He made so much money. But I feel like it robbed us of a lot of good years of Robert Downey Jr. performances. Because that's like 90% of what he's done the last 10, 15 years has been Marvel stuff. And when he's done outside of that, he's like one of my favorite actors.
Yeah, I feel like he's the only Marvel guy who got the big paycheck because Marvel didn't know how much they were going to take off when they made Iron Man. So he was the one who was like, no, you will pay me. And everybody else got locked into contracts because they realized how much money they're going to have to pay Robert Downey Jr. in the future.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, he made like the fuck you, I can just have an island money. And it's a bummer. It's a bummer. I think you're right. There's a world of Robert Downey Jr. that we didn't get to see.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anything else on Les Grossman?
No, but I'm glad you guessed him early.
Yeah. Let me guess another. I didn't think Les Grossman would be in here, and I don't think this one will either, but maybe I'll be surprised. He has like a 1 minute scene. No, a 1 minute cameo in Austin Powers Goldmember. Do you remember that?
Oh, I do. Yeah.
Is that number one?
No, but that is a great scene.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like him and Beyonce, is it? No, wait. No, that's not the Beyonce one. No, it's him and
Gwyneth Paltrow, isn't it?
Gwyneth Paltrow. Yeah. It's how it opens, right? And then he's like watching Tom Cruise do it.
It's a movie about Austin Powers in Austin Powers, right?
I recently rewatched that this year and I cannot remember why, but it was a good watch.
I love Austin Powers, man. I've been waiting for 20 years for a fourth one, but I don't know if it's going to happen. Okay. Well, we talked about it already. I'll go ahead and guess Minority Report.
No.
No, okay.
No, it's not here.
Do you like that movie, though, overall?
Not really. No,
Really?
I don't
Okay.
love that movie. Okay, there's two beloved Cruise films that are not here. And I was like, I'm going to
Interesting.
get yelled at by Nick, and that's one of them.
Okay. I won't yell at you for that one, but if my number one is not in here, I will yell at you. Respectfully. Respectfully yell at you. Respectfully curse at you. I'm going to save it, though. So,
Oh no, I'm really worried because I have a feeling that it is the other one.
oh, I'm going to be so upset with you. Well, let's save it.
Okay.
You mentioned War of the Worlds. I don't think it's his best performance, but it's a successful movie. Is it on here?
It is not, but I do think it's a really good performance because it chips away at heroic Tom Cruise. What he does in that whole movie is he is a hero who's not a hero at all. He's running away and he's like, don't stop. Don't try to save other people. Don't do this. It's really a subversive movie when you think about that one. He's basically a scared rabbit the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always liked that movie. I feel like it's not the most popular movie, but I've always had a soft spot for it.
It's a good one. And I love Dakota Fanning too. I'll just always be Team Dakota. Yeah.
Let's go with another kind of sci-fi movie, Oblivion.
No.
With Emily Blunt. Is that the one that you were afraid of? No.
No.
Okay. Man.
Huh.
All right. Okay.
Oh, this is fun. Am I stumping you?
No, I mean, I'm just like, I usually try to save my biggest guesses, but I'm starting to run out of the not so big guesses. I'll say this one is in here. Jerry Maguire.
Yes.
I'll say it's the top 5.
No.
Oof. 7.
A little lower.
8.
A little lower than that.
9.
Yeah.
You're torturing me there. Jerry Maguire.
Jerry Maguire is great. That's his second of 3 Oscar nominations. It's a really solid movie. To me, Jerry Maguire is one of the distillations of examples of how people get a Tom Cruise movie so wrong. Like, a theme we're going to be hearing a lot, I think, in this podcast is Tom Cruise's efforts to shed this image of being like the guy who has it all on screen and wins and gets the girl and blah, 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 blah. Jerry Maguire, to me, is one of the best examples of that. Because, like, this is a really screwed up movie. You know, like, the whole template for this film was that they wanted to make something kind of like The Apartment. You know, the Jack Lemmon movie about, like, the soul-crushingness of modern life and how it breaks you down. And for some reason, this movie just turned into, oh, it's a great rom-com. And no, this is a movie about like the destruction of the human soul that gets considered as a rom-com when it's not at all like that.
Mm.
If the standard arc of a movie is like somebody's kind of a bad person and then they have their epiphany at the end and then they become a good guy, that's how this movie starts. Jerry Maguire is shitty. And then in the first scene, he's like, wait, I know. I want to be good. I want to lead with my heart. And leading with your heart is what gets him humiliated.
Mm.
And the whole rest of the movie is not him being like, I should lead with my heart. It's him being like, how can I get back to being the horrible corporate monster that I was?
Yeah.
And I think if you watch this movie and you believe that he is sincerely committed to Renee Zellweger at the end of this film, you should watch it again, because absolutely not. That is not a relationship that's going to work out. It's just a guy who's floundering and desperate and trying to find something to latch onto. It's a really grim romance that I don't think you should believe.
Yeah.
And I don't even think he believes it. When that movie ends, the very last shot is not him and Renee Zellweger holding hands. They're both holding hands of the little kid. He likes that kid. He loves that kid, but this relationship is not going to work out.
Yeah. Because like the thing people owe it is what I opened the show with today, show me the money. I feel like sometimes this movie gets reduced to that one scene. You know what I mean? Whereas it has some profound moments in it, for sure.
It really does. And I think that Tom Cruise comes close to one of his best comedy performances with Cuba Gooding Jr. in this. There's this dialogue that they do back and forth where they're like repeating things at each other. One of the scenes is like, Tom Cruise keeps going, help me help you. Help me help you. And every time he says it, he does it a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And he just gets more and more frenetic. When you watch that movie, he's almost a cartoon character sometimes. And he's like flutzing around and dropping goldfish. And I'm taking the goldfish with me. Like, it's a hysterically weird performance. And the fact that people forget the weirdness of it really confuses me.
Yeah, well, you're right. It's different, but a little similar to Les Grossman in Tropic Thunder, where it's outside what the viewer expects of Tom Cruise, right? And honestly, I wish he did that more.
Me too.
Well, maybe as he gets older, he'll start doing more of that stuff, but maybe not. He was just jumping off a motorcycle off a cliff in fucking Mission Impossible, whatever this one coming out is. So who knows? Yeah, I remember liking the movie a lot. It's just been so long since I've seen it.
It's a good one. It's a good one. I think if you watch it expecting it to be dark and looking for the dark, it's weird. That movie, Shakespeare in Love, I think they get kind of written off as saccharine 90s things, and they're really not.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shakespeare in Love. Hello, listener. It's time for a fresh break to tell you about our new partner, HelloFresh. HelloFresh takes the hassle out of mealtime this spring by delivering pre-portioned ingredients and easy-to-prepare recipes right to your door. Even better, you can skip the checkout lines because HelloFresh has dinner covered. No worries if you're not a pro in the kitchen. HelloFresh's foolproof recipes arrive pre-portioned and easy to prepare in just a few steps. Trust me, if I can do it, anyone can. Even Dr. Buster, probably. HelloFresh's recipes are also fun to make. My kids love helping me bring these recipes to life in the kitchen. It's become a real bonding experience for us. Better yet, the recipes are so easy I know even my kids can't screw them up. Now it's time for you to experience HelloFresh for yourself. And just like the recipes, we're going to make it easy for you. Just go to hellofresh.com/tennish50 and use code tennish50 for 50% off, plus your first box ships free. Again, that's hellofresh.com/10ish50 and use the promo code tennish50 for 50% off and free shipping on your first box. Just check the show notes for a direct link, and you'll quickly see why HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit.
I'm Richard Serrett. Join me on Strange Planet for in-depth conversations with the world's top paranormal investigators, alien abductees, Bigfoot trackers, monster hunters, time travelers, and more.
The handler one day told her this whole thing about how they've been terraforming on Mars and they're building a colony and they're recruiting specific people of specific bloodlines and specific talents and skill sets to go onto the planet.
On Richard Serrett's Strange Planet, we're redefining reality. Listen now wherever you get your podcasts.
I wanted to mention something here. I pulled a few random Tom Cruise facts to read to you during this episode. Well, to read to all of you, the listeners too, you're included. These are just random. Did you know that Tom Cruise is 5 feet 7 inches tall? He's a very short man.
Yes.
I'm not saying that's bad.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's like, I knew he was short, but that's short. That's pretty short.
It's funny. Sometimes people will be like, he's 5'5". And then sometimes newspapers will be like, he's 5'9". His height gets reported in every sort of direction. I think 5'7" seems about right.
5'7", that's shorter than I would have thought. But I would have thought like 5'9", but whatever.
He feels like he should be 5'9".
Yeah, he does. Did you know that Tom Cruise doesn't permit people to use his likeness for video games or action figures? And it never hit me, but there's like no toys, at Walmart or Target for Tom Cruise in Top Gun or Mission Impossible. Whereas any other action movie would have toys out.
He's
So I thought that was
very
interesting.
savvy.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll spoiler alert say that Top Gun is on here, and we're going to talk about some of that because he has that sense of control of his image from that early age.
Yeah. Is it just a control thing? Is that what you attribute that to? Like, what do you think is the ultimate motivator for him in not wanting like the extra cash from getting his toys out there?
Well, I think it's a few things. I think that Tom Cruise is both like, okay. It's like I kind of want to call him the first wave of today's movie stars, but I also want to call him the very last of the last wave of movie stars.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think he grew up thinking when I become an actor, he wanted to be Paul Newman. He didn't want to be Sylvester Stallone. He didn't want to be Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, he wanted to be Paul Newman. And he wanted to have that classical Hollywood career. And I think he's held himself to that bar.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I think there was a moment early on in his career where he looked around the landscape and he thought, there's all of these actors who are my age and they're being lumped in as the Brat Pack. And whatever that is, I'm not that. Like, I refuse to be lumped in as somebody just because I'm like young. He didn't want to be a clique. He always wanted to stand alone. And so I think he had this like independent streak where he never wanted to be marketed or turned into a fad, which brings me to Top Gun, which I'll just tell you is my number 5. Like, Top Gun, one of the most crucial things about Top Gun is like, as he's doing that movie, he tells like the press people, you're not going to take any stills of me shirtless. You're not going to take any stills of me like at the beach. You're not going to take any stills of me like in topless volleyball. You're not going to take any stills of me, in the locker room. He's like, those images are not going to get out. Those images are for the movie. Whatever promo photos you run of me, they're going to be me like on the motorcycle, or they're going to be me on the plane. They're going to be me in my flight jacket. And he, at this moment, is only like 24, 25. He's not like the biggest star in the world. This is the movie that makes him the biggest star in the world.
Right.
But he knew then that he needed to have the clout to say, here's the image I want to present. And it's not going to be beefcakey. His absolute steadfastness that he wasn't going to be sold makes sense to me, that he wouldn't let himself have any toys. He's just never let his body be sold.
Man, I'm sure there's other examples of that in Hollywood, but man, I can't think of any where like, can you look around today in modern Hollywood, like in the social media age, can you imagine like, I don't know, Chris Hemsworth telling people you're not allowed to post a picture of me with my shirt off?
Yeah.
It just seems
you can't
crazy.
get away with it.
I mean, I had to tell my producers the same thing, but like it's different because I'm in podcasting.
No, but like that clarity, right? And that's also part of why Top Gun is up here for me. Like Top Gun is 5 because when he gets offered Top Gun, just to trace back where he was, the thing he does right before Top Gun is Legend, which is fucking awful. The Ridley Scott movie with Tony Scott's brother, where he's like Jack of the Green. Oh God, it's awful. And he's this fairy boy and it's a giant. It's one of the things, to use a Marvel analogy again, that like you're a rising actor. They're like, we're going to put you in this big movie by a big director, the guy who did Blade Runner. It's going to have all these effects. It's going to be so cool. It's going to make a ton of money. You should do this, kid. You should feel grateful that you're in this movie.
Yeah.
He does. He goes to London. He's in Legend. He runs around in like leotards and whatever. And it's an awful movie. And when he finishes that project, he's like, it could have been anybody in that movie. That movie wasn't about me. I was just filling in a hole, filling in a character. And so he wasn't at a high point in his career. He was a nobody still, more or less. A guy who was like the lead of like kind of a lame film. He's like, oh God, like whoever the guy was who was in John Carter of Mars, Oh. What's his name? Taylor? Taylor? Is it a Taylor?
Taylor Kitchener.
Taylor Kitchener,
right?
So it's like he's Taylor Kitchener at this moment, right? Yeah. Taylor Kitchener doesn't have clout, but Top Gun comes to him, Jerry Bruckheimer, and they're like, we kind of want you to do this movie about pilots. And he's like, I don't think I want to do it. The script sounds stupid, because it was stupid. The original script for Top Gun was like, he's a cool pilot. There's a bunch of war stuff happening. And his girlfriend is a gymnast. He's like, dating a gymnast, and it's all just like rah, rah, macho idiocy.
Yeah.
And he was like, imagine Taylor Kushner. He was being like, I don't want to do this movie. It's not good enough for me, but I'll make you a deal. And this is what Tom Cruise says. He says, you give me 3 months to go down to the naval base, hang out with these guys, see what else there is to talk about here. And then maybe I'll do this movie. Like, he volunteers to work 3 months for free
Right.
on the script to see if he can come up with better ideas for Top Gun. And they're like, okay, sure. It doesn't cost them anything. He's doing it for free. And he does. And that's what he does. He like goes down to Miramar. He hangs out with like the Top Gun aviators. My uncle was one of them. So he like went to the bars with Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
And he comes up with this idea that this movie should not be about some idiot guy dating a gymnast, that this should be about competition and manhood. And he comes up with this idea of like the race for the Top Gun trophy, which the Navy did not like, because they're like, we're a team. We're not like against each other. It's not like, it shouldn't be Iceman versus Maverick. It should be like all of us in this together. But he really comes up with this like angle on it that doesn't make it feel like a Rambo movie, you know? Because it was basically going to be like Rambo with airplanes and a gymnast.
Right.
And he's like, no, I want to do something more honorable. I think this is another one that's really misremembered because it's really about a guy who comes into the air and comes into this like flight academy with this like weight on his shoulders about how his dad was a Top Gun. His dad disappeared. He has to overcome this shame he feels about his family. And all of his cockiness in this movie is an act. It's kind of like about being in a macho dog-eat-dog world. And you put on the idea of acting really cocky so that everybody thinks that you're the best. And he's got these layers of cockiness in it. Some of them are there, but then some of them he's just doing to fuck with Val Kilmer. He's doing it deliberately. So much of this movie is just to fuck with Val Kilmer.
Who doesn't love to fuck with Val Kilmer, though, right?
Right? But the way he describes this character, he describes playing Maverick as feeling like he was an actor playing a movie star. But this is where we think, oh, this is just Tom Cruise. He just is this movie star, you know?
Yeah.
And so you get this merging that happens and you lose the acting and you only see the movie star.
Well, and part of that is because like today in 2023, if you go back and watch the original Top Gun, we in our 2023-ness can't separate Tom Cruise, the movie star, with Tom Cruise, the like up and coming actor in Hollywood.
Yeah, because we were born in a post-Top Gun is the biggest movie alive
Post-Top Gun world, yeah.
I felt like I never had a choice to decide whether or not Tom Cruise was a major movie star in my lifetime, right?
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting point. I'm curious if Top Gun 2, or what's it called? Is it Top Gun Maverick? That's what it's called, right? Is that on here?
No.
Okay.
No.
I didn't see that one.
I think it's got some great moments if you think of it almost like a heist film where, you know, in the best heist films, they're like, we're going to lay out how this is going to work and then we're going to try to pull it off. And that's kind of what the last stretch of the movie is. We're going to do this flight and we're going to make it work. And I like all of that part. And I like the corrective he adds to the image of Maverick in that movie, which is if you watch Top Gun and you think Maverick is the best pilot ever and I would trust him, no, Maverick is doing things that help his partner die. You know, Maverick should not be trusted. Iceman is actually the hero of Top Gun. Everything Iceman says about how to be a pilot is correct, and Maverick is wrong. You just like him more. And I like that in Top Gun Maverick, he's like, let me play out for you how his career goes. Iceman becomes the head of this branch of the military, and Maverick is about to get kicked out. That's how a Maverick plays out in the real world, and I respect that about it. But then, like, they're sitting around a bar, and all these young kids are still playing, like, Great Balls of Fire, and you're like, no, they're not. No, they're not. They're not. Like, you need to break free of that nostalgia.
And you're not at the bar every Friday night playing Great Balls of Fire?
Yeah, singing the same song your dad sang when you didn't even know him, and everybody's singing it like a dirge. What are you talking about?
Yeah. And why are we singing about Great Balls of Fire anyway? Like, I don't know.
Exactly.
That's the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, the chokehold of nostalgia was a little too thick in that scene.
Okay, so Top Gun 1 or Top Gun is number 5. Top Gun Maverick or Top Gun 2 is not on the list. Okay.
That said, I hope he wins the Oscar. Well, he's not going to win an Oscar. But that said, I hope the nomination for Top Gun Maverick makes him feel like he did the blockbuster as best he can and maybe now he can move on.
I meant to bring this up earlier. You said it. He's been nominated several times for Oscars, but he's never won.
He's never won.
That was a big thing with Leonardo DiCaprio, right? And he finally won it for The Revenant. People don't really say that about Tom Cruise. Like, oh, he's never won. I mean, not that I hear anyway, but he's never won an Oscar either.
No, he's been nominated 3 times. And all 3 of those are on my list. Hint, hint, hint.
And
And I feel like he deserved all three of them, honestly. And they kind of, I don't know. There's a shadow competition that I will put forth to you when we get there.
Shadow competition. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to guess a movie I have not seen, but it's Jack Reacher.
No.
No, okay.
No. I mean, I love those books, but only Michael Shannon should have been back Jack Reacher. Doesn't make any sense.
Okay. Mission Impossible.
That is here.
Yeah. The original, I mean.
Mm-hmm.
6.
Yes. Good job.
I knew it.
I mean, yeah, part of why Mission Impossible is up here is because it is like an example of Tom Cruise's one-man fight against people doing lazy CG.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's sort of all Mission Impossibles for me are number 6. They're all there. Although the number 1 is my favorite one. Number 3 is probably my second favorite one. Yeah. Number 1's the best one. Thank you.
Kind of merged together for me after number 1. They blend together. 2
is terrible, and then all the rest are fine. 3 is good.
How many are there? 4?
There's like 6. I think there's 6.
I'm going to double check while we're talking.
Yeah. But what I like about Mission Impossible is this is the first franchise that Tom Cruise is ever in. Because he doesn't do sequels for almost all of his career.
You're right.
Like Mission Impossible 2 is his first sequel ever.
Wow.
And he does that because this is also his first thing that he produced when he formed his own production company. He was like, what is the property I should do? And he went through, and this was a time in the 90s, everybody's bringing back old TV shows and the Flintstones and blah, 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 blah. He picked Mission Impossible because he really liked the idea of doing an action franchise that was about intelligence. Again, he doesn't want to be Rambo. He wants to be somebody who's smart. Mm-hmm. It's more about costumes, disguise, research, spy work, trickery, and less about like machine gunning people to death. It was his goal for Mission Impossible.
It seems like him.
And what I really admire about it,
it just seems like a guy that would really latch on to like the intelligence part of crime fighting, we'll call it. I don't know.
Exactly. And what I really think is great about the Mission Impossible franchise is that Tom Cruise as a producer made a choice early on where he just kept giving the reins of Mission Impossible to directors that he thought would do something interesting, which is why one is great. He's like Brian De Palma. Brian De Palma was not hip in the mid-90s, but he's like, Brian De Palma, do this movie. And Brian De Palma does. And it's like, Brian De Palma had never had a budget that big before. And he makes this really great Mission Impossible. And then he's like, I think John Woo is interesting. John Woo. And John Woo makes a completely different type of Mission Impossible movie. And then he's like, Brad Bird. Brad Bird makes a weird one. And then he's like, J.J. Abrams. J.J. Abrams makes like his first movie. Like he takes these risks on directors who either aren't cool or who are like kind of building their career from abroad. And he says, make a cool movie with me. Mm-hmm. If there's a weakness of the Mission Impossible franchise is that the character that he plays kind of doesn't really exist. There is no Ethan Hunt. You know, there is no continuous Ethan Hunt story that you really care about. Like they kind of gave him a wife. It doesn't really matter. He has this kind of relationship sort of with What's-Her-Face, who's in like Circus Musical. That doesn't really matter. None of that matters. Like it's more just about the stunts. But his adventurousness with putting himself in other people's hands is great. Yeah. And then I think it's also why it's sad that like it's only the McQuarrie show now, because I think in just the franchise alone, you can see that he doesn't take risks the way that he used to. He takes them with his body, but he doesn't take them creatively.
That's a good way to put it. He definitely still takes the risks with his body. Mission Impossible. Yeah, the 7th one is coming out this year. I was reading while you were talking. Yeah. Do you have high hopes for it?
I hope it makes a ton of money, and I hope he stops making them.
Yeah. He does seem to be, I don't know if cashing out is the right word, but, you know, he's getting older. I don't know. Seems like... Yeah. Go ahead.
The way I feel about it is something in that Oprah year of 2005 really broke him. Because up until then, he still took a lot of interesting risks. And I think post 2005, when the world is like, you're not cool anymore, you're not our movie star anymore, we don't like you, he was like, I will prove to you that I should still be your movie star. He's almost like, okay, Tom Cruise is a guy who could just show up in, you know, an independent, or not independent, but like a low budget movie about like a man with autism and his brother. And he would turn that movie into the #1 box office hit of the year, which is crazy. Imagine a world where that movie, where Rain Man is the #1 box office hit of the year. Tom Cruise could do that. He could push any movie to #1. He was always that guy. And now he lives in a world where that's harder and harder to do because it's all Marvel movies and IP.
Yeah.
And I think his quest to be the #1 guy again, to be like, I am still that guy, has made him only do these like giant action movies. And I'm really hoping that Top Gun Maverick being like #1 box office hit in America and nominated for Oscars, like gives him that cocaine hit. and he can be like, I did it. Because I feel like that's all he's been doing for 15 years. And I'm like ready for him to move on to his next phase.
It's kind of like what we talked about with Robert Downey Jr. earlier. Is like, I enjoy Robert Downey Jr.'s work so much, I'm ready for him to move. He finally has, I think. But I'm ready for him to move on from...
Dr. Dolittle, baby.
Oh, God. That doesn't count. Well, okay, let's talk Katie Holmes real quick and the 2005 incident on Oprah. I do want to hear your thoughts. You said you had some. But in my research of random, out-of-context Tom Cruise facts, I found this. You probably heard this. I'd heard this before. So he's had 3 wives, Mimi Rogers, Nicole Kidman, Katie Holmes. And at the time that they separated from Tom Cruise, they all happened to be 33 years old. Have you heard that before?
No.
They're all the exact same age when they separated.
You mean Jesus's age?
33? Oh, fuck. That is Jesus's age. Amy, I didn't even put that together.
No.
I'll give you one more. Each of Cruise's wives have been 11 years younger than the one before them.
Whoa.
So Katie Holmes was 11 years younger than Nicole Kidman when they married. And Nicole Kidman was 11 years younger than Mimi Rogers.
Whoa. Because, Mimi Rogers is older than him when they got together, I think. Because when he first got to Hollywood, I think he was dating older women for a lot of that first stretch. And then Rebecca De Mornay, but only after they did Risky Business. But that's interesting.
Yeah.
Does that make you believe in numerology?
No. It makes me believe in an aging Hollywood actor that likes him young.
Yeah.
I don't know. I read, I mean, who knows how much of this shit's true, but I read somewhere that the Katie Holmes relationship was arranged by higher ups in Scientology. He was kind of like, this is the type of woman I'm looking for. Go find me this woman. And they brought him Katie Holmes. And don't know if that's true or not, but...
Here's where I'm going to sound like a crazy person. I think that's fine.
Okay.
I think if you're Tom Cruise, you can't meet anybody in any sort of normal way. So if you're like asking a matchmaker to find you somebody,
okay, matchmaker.
That kind of makes sense to me. That said, Scientology is absolutely batshit, and I don't at all believe in any of the tenets, and I think Miscavige is a horrible person. Yeah.
You don't believe that Tom Cruise can heal people with just his touch because he's now an operating Thetan level 6 in the Church of Scientology?
No.
Weird.
I feel like the tragedy of Tom Cruise is that he might be the only sincere believer that Scientology has ever had. I really believe that he thinks it's great.
Yeah, I do believe that he believes it.
And I believe that people around him in Scientology are like, great, let's see what we can get out of this. I think it's not too hard to imagine that a guy who's been famous since he was a kid and in this insular bubble has people really trying to keep him in a bubble.
I think he's in the bubble still in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And Tom Cruise is the face of Scientology more than L. Ron Hubbard or anyone else has ever been. It's Tom Cruise. And I think everyone at the top of Scientology knows it's one big scam. It's one big con. But I think Tom Cruise is bought in to the scam.
I do too. Like when I was going back and reading every interview whoever did, what you notice is it's Mimi Rogers who introduces him to Scientology. And you kind of get the sense that she was like sent after to bring him into Scientology. You know, like go get that young actor, bring him to us.
John Travolta, same way.
Before he joined Scientology, one of the things that he would always say in interviews was he would talk about how hard school was for him because he was dyslexic and he was never diagnosed as being a dyslexic. So he couldn't read that well. He always felt behind. It was really frustrating to him to feel like a failure in a classroom. Like he got through school because he liked wrestling. You know, that was really his thing.
Yeah, I read that.
Yeah. And what he says when he joined Scientology, this is like 89, 90, 91, before we had all completely turned against it, before we knew enough to really turn against it. He was like, Scientology cured my dyslexia. And he seems so sincere about that. You know, like I couldn't read and now I can read. And that is Scientology. And he seems to believe that so wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
It kind of breaks my heart for him. I don't like any religion. So, you know, to me, Scientology, Christian fundamentalism, it's all wacky. I can't imagine what it's like to be a believer and feel like, why are you against? Yeah.
It softens the blow for me a little bit that he's in Scientology because at least he believes it. At least he's not part of the con, right? It seems to be. I mean, who knows? But that said, he does believe that he has the power to heal small wounds, sprains, and infections with his holy touch. So there's that too.
Yeah. But like if you told me that Tom Cruise didn't have a cell phone and couldn't look up stuff, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I don't know if you've ever been to Jerusalem, but like we went to Jerusalem and went to like the very strict Orthodox quarter. And when you're in the very strict Orthodox quarter, you can't have a cell phone that connects to the internet. Like you can kind of text people to keep up with people, but you can't like, you don't want your kids Googling something that goes against what you think they should know. Instead of like watching television, they like would print the news on big broadsheets and then like paste them to the wall. So you would walk by a wall and every day the news would be updated with like a big broadsheet. This is in the ultra Orthodox section of Jerusalem.
Crazy.
And I have a feeling that at a certain level of celebrity, that's kind of what your life is like. It maybe should be. Like a lot of celebrities should not be on Instagram.
Right.
But like you can kind of walk through a very old school world where that's it. He should probably look up what happened to Shelley Miscavige because I don't know and nobody knows. But there's a point where you have to be like, come on, man. You knew his wife. Where'd she go?
Yeah.
But
no,
yeah.
I'm with you totally. But I think even celebrities outside of Scientology, once you get to a certain point, the Tom Cruise point, the Robert Downey Jr. point, Tom Hanks, once you get to a certain level, I think it's really impossible to keep a good grasp on the real world because you are so famous and so rich for so long and there's so many yes men around you at all times, people doing whatever you want. How can you stay in touch with reality,
Yeah, I think it's crazier than we could ever understand. I don't think you can ever understand it unless you're there.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It seems like it sucks. I'm sure it's also great. I'm sure it's great and they would not trade places with me, but it also seems like it sucks.
I think you're right. I think they would not trade places with either of us. But they don't know what they're missing out on.
I can't be like, bring me sushi. Yeah.
Or Donald Trump with his Diet Coke button at the White House.
Exactly.
I've been on record of saying that of all the things Donald Trump has done, that might be one of the better things. I could understand that one.
It's so targeted. It's really specific. That's what makes it so funny.
I wonder about the person who had to fill that Diet Coke room all day because he went through like 6 or 8 Diet Cokes a day, I think.
Wow.
I don't know how that man is still living.
Yeah, no, his body will never rot because of all that aspartame.
Okay, let me get us back on track. You mentioned a movie there. It has to be on this list. That's Rain Man.
No.
Oh, really?
No.
The fuck?
Yeah, I have a different movie from that stretch that I think represents that stretch of his career.
Okay. So Rain Man is 1988 because I just looked it up. What else?
There's 3 movies that I kind of lumped together from this period.
I'm blanking. I'm sure I know them.
I can talk to you. I can make this less toxic. Unless you want to keep guessing.
No, you talk to me. Tell me about it.
Okay.
Give me some hints here.
So to set the stage, Tom Cruise does Top Gun, #1 hit of the year. They're like, we're going to quintuple your salary if you will do Top Gun 2 immediately. Tom Cruise of the 80s was like, no way. I don't want to be that guy. I'm not that guy. I'm not your franchise action guy. So he turns down making 5 times the salary. Being a 24-year-old who was like, had to support his family a little bit in high school because like his dad left when he was a kid, paper route, the whole thing, like did not grow up with money. Turns down the biggest paycheck that you could imagine to do Color of Money, to take like a second build role in a Scorsese movie because he wants to work with Scorsese and he wants to work with his idol, Paul Newman. And then from there, he does the same thing again. He like turns down money to do Rain Man, to be like second fiddle to Dustin Hoffman. And what's notable is like both Color of Money and Rain Man, both of the leads, Paul Newman and Dustin Hoffman, are like Oscar lauded for those performances. He doesn't get nominated at all. And he is great. Like his performances set up their performances. He's doing all the work. He doesn't get any attention because he is Top Gun guy. Nobody wants to take him seriously, even though he's trying so hard to be taken seriously. So then he does one that people don't take seriously, but I think it's just as good as of a performance. And it's his own movie. And it's number 10 on my list, and it's Cocktail.
I was wondering if you'd say that. Okay, Cocktail.
Cocktail is such a depressing movie. It's so depressing and so dark. Cocktail is a serious movie. You're probably like, Cocktail, Kokomo, flipping bottles, right? It's thought of as a party movie.
A little bit.
Yeah, this is not a party movie. It is such a bleak movie. This movie should be held up there with movies like Wall Street, Money Never Sleeps.
Okay,
It's about the economy of the 80s. It's about capitalism. If you're like, capitalism sucks and it's toxic, that's what Cocktail's about. Cocktail is about how hard it is for somebody who isn't born with connections to make it in this world, and how the world is set up against somebody who doesn't come in with a lot of connections, background, money, education, how hard it is to get a foothold in New York. The whole first stretch of Cocktail is Tom Cruise trying to get a legitimate job and he can't. And like working himself to the bone, taking classes, finally getting a job at this bar just to try to make ends meet as he goes to school. The falling asleep in his school because he's working too hard to have the money to even go to school in the first place. And it's actually played out really seriously. Then he falls into the world of like cocktailing. It's actually sort of like Magic Mike now that I'm thinking about it. The first Magic Mike that's trying to be about like how hard it is to get by. Cocktail is a very serious movie, that's like just thought of as the Beach Boy party thing. But what he does in it, that is a dark character. There's death in Cocktail. There's accidental pregnancies. There's people self-destructing. There's a lot of sabotage. There's this sense of like the bleariness of like, what does it take to wake up every day to make money? What is it like to be miserable in paradise? He's playing a shallow bastard who just wants to get ahead, but also has the deck stacked against him, you know? And so you hate him, but you're rooting for him. And it is kind of the natural progression to me of like those two cocky asshole characters that he's playing in Color of Money and in Rain Man.
Yeah.
Now it's his show. And then he also learned to flip bottles, and he's really great at it. That's probably the first real stunt that he does. I mean, besides the flying.
Well, that's the fucking thing about him, man. Like, he will learn whatever it is the character, like, he learned to fly planes for Top Gun. Even something like cocktailing, he learned to do that just so he can, I mean, that's like some classical acting shit, you know what I mean? Like,
it's really hard. Like, did you hear that they're probably not letting Marvel actors touch props anymore because it's all CG? Like, he's like, no. Yeah.
No.
He's a one man standing against a digital world.
Yeah. Well, I wonder how much of the Marvel thing, maybe none, I don't know, because I'm the first I'm hearing of that, but I wonder how much of that is like due to the Alec Baldwin thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
We're just not going to have props anymore.
I think we should never have real guns on sets anymore, unless they're like absolutely plugged up with metal. We don't need that.
That's a whole other thing, but I don't understand why a real gun was needed on set either, but.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on that. We knew Helena.
Oh.
Helena was the DP on my boyfriend's film right before that. We'd spent the Thanksgiving before with her. She was a really dedicated artist.
Yeah. It's terrible. It's terrible. There's no excuse for that, really.
No. But it also feels a little bit like an actor needs to be there to act. They need to be there to be in the moment. And I do feel like it's not the actor's job to look at the gun when there are two other people whose job it is to look at the gun. That's where the failure was. That seems like a misunderstanding of what should happen on a set. You know, like
totally.
There's delegation on sets for reasons because the actor needs to be in the headspace of the scene.
Yeah.
To me, the failure really came down on the lead up to that because you should not have to worry. Yeah.
But I know he's being charged for.
Yeah. It doesn't. I mean, it's interesting because like, you're right. Because here I am being like, this is protocol on a set. The actor's not supposed to worry about it. But then you're like, then there's the real world that we live in. Like, am I saying Hollywood movies get special rules? I think we're going to have a really interesting argument. Like, is the set its own rule place where rules don't matter? Like, what is that? You know?
I don't know the answer to that.
It's so strange. Yeah.
It feels like somebody should be held accountable, right? But don't know how or who that's determined.
No. I mean, I feel like the book should be thrown at the armor and the AD, but yeah.
Sounds right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, on that happy note.
Yeah.
Psst. Want to skip ads like that in the future? Go to tennispod.com/plus. Sign up and you'll never hear an ad on Tennis Podcast again. So I should have done this earlier. I finally pulled up a list of Tom Cruise IMDb because I was just guessing blind up to this point, but it reminded me of a few good movies that I definitely need to guess. My next guess is going to be A Few Good Men.
No.
Okay. Isn't that one of his Oscar nominee roles?
Mm-mm.
No, it's not.
It's not. I think Jack Nicholson maybe was nominated, but he wasn't. Yeah.
I feel like something or someone was. Okay.
He did get nominated for. Yes. I was going to say he did get nominated for a military role. And
Born on the
4th of July. Yeah, Born on the 4th of July is very high for me. It's number 3.
Number 3, okay.
It's his first Oscar nomination. It's really deserved. Born on the 4th of July, for people who haven't seen it, it's the story of Ron Kovic. You know, and Ron Kovic, real life anti-war activist. As a young kid, he goes to Vietnam. He portrays himself at this time in his life as kind of like an idiot who wasn't particularly very good at anything, but sort of believed like this is what you do to be a patriot, you know, and he wanted to go make his town proud. And I don't know what else to do with my life. So he joins and he comes home destroyed from the war and everything he did in the war. And so it's his arc of that and how he went from like dumb innocence to having his innocence destroyed to being in an abysmal place for a long time and finally climbing out of it in a wheelchair and becoming like an anti-war activist. And so Tom Cruise does this role not very long after Top Gun. And to me, it feels kind of like a calibration of Top Gun because Top Gun comes out and military enlistment rates spike.
Really? Okay.
Huge spike in military enlistment rates because of Top Gun. Massive.
Didn't consider
the Air
that.
Force decides they need to get leather jackets because they're like, all these Top Gun guys want to wear leather jackets and we don't have them. So maybe we can peel off some Navy people if we get leather jackets too. Massive. Like, you remember Tailhook? It was like this big military scandal with the Navy that was like in the 90s where the Navy raped a bunch of women at a convention.
Sounds on brand, but
yeah. They blamed Top Gun for Tailhook. They said Top Gun made all these yahoos join the Navy, and then these guys were raping women at conventions.
It's fucking stupid.
So that's the background of military that is going on here.
Yeah.
I think that Tom Cruise, consciously or subconsciously, does an anti-war movie to be like, this is not the point of Top Gun. I wasn't saying like join the military. And he does Ron Kovic in Born on the 4th of July. And it's an amazing performance. Like, it is really raw and shameful, embarrassing, hard, brutal. There's scenes where Ron Kovic is in there screaming about how his penis will never work again, you know, like to his mom. Like, it's a vulnerable role that he absolutely disappears into. And, you know, he spent a lot of time in the wheelchair doing that role. Like, he does some interviews in this time where like interviewers show up at a mall looking for Tom Cruise and he's in a wheelchair and they don't notice him. And that's how much he's disappearing into this character.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, like Oliver Stone, who directed the movie, was like, I can find a drug that will paralyze your legs for you if you want. And he's like, what? I mean, if you need me to. But he's like, I can just learn how to be in a wheelchair on my own.
It sounds like something he would have considered for sure, right?
Yeah.
Right.
He's like, let me do it, man. This role is just so raw in a way that you don't see. He gets nominated for the Oscar. And this is where I think he really has a pivot in his career. He's nominated for the Oscar, honestly, probably deserves it. But he's nominated against a guy who's also playing a character in a wheelchair. And that guy wins. And that guy is Daniel Day-Lewis. Daniel Day-Lewis from My Left Foot.
Okay.
I believe deeply that there is this like subconscious competition between Tom Cruise and Daniel Day-Lewis, and that this is where it starts. But if he had gotten this Oscar at this moment, there'd be a whole different Tom Cruise conversation we'd be talking about. I think his career would have absolutely changed.
Yeah.
And that leads into my number 2 film, honestly.
Oh, really? Okay, what's that? Yeah, tell me.
It's Interview with a Vampire.
How does that lead into Interview with a Vampire?
It does so directly, and I'm very glad you asked that question. So when Tom Cruise is cast in Interview with a Vampire, everybody loses their shit. Do you remember any of this? People lose their mind.
No. Well, go ahead and tell me.
Okay. Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire books, hugely popular. Lestat, sexy dark vampire.
Oh, baby.
People are like, there's only one actor who can play Lestat, and it is Daniel Day-Lewis. And that's who like the fans want. Oh. That's who Anne Rice wants. They all want Daniel Day-Lewis. And so when the studio cast Tom Cruise instead, people lose their absolute minds because they're like, this Yahoo, this Top Gun guy, this cocky American asshole, this stereotype we have of Tom Cruise. No way can this scrubbed darling be Lestat. Lestat is continental. Lestat is posh. Lestat is Eurotrash. Lestat is blonde. Lestat is sexy. These are all things Tom Cruise has not really been in movies. And so they lost their mind.
Sexy, maybe.
Sexy. His sex scenes in Top Gun are so bad. Like licking her nose. It's awful. And so Anne Rice herself led a huge campaign against his casting. She was mad.
Really?
She was not going to have it. People were like burning books. It was massive. The LA Times, if you go back and look at old LA Times articles, there are pages of angry letters about this casting that go on for weeks. People keep writing in. They're like, no way, no way, no way. But here's why it's at number 2. Because he takes this role on. Nobody wants him to do it. And he is wonderful as Lestat. Like, he loses weight. He does do the blonde hair. Mm-hmm. He plunges into this because he knows that nobody wants him to do this role. So the story behind the Interview with the Vampire movie is that, you know, the director of the film, Neil Jordan, he reads the book, right? In the book, Interview with the Vampire is all told through the point of view of the vampire Louis, who gets bitten by Lestat and how he thinks Lestat is like a bad guy. And so Neil Jordan reads that book and he's like, okay, so Louis is the hero and Lestat is the bad guy.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt says that he started to read the book, he's Louis, and he thought it was so trashy that he threw it away. He like never finished the book, he didn't bother. Tom Cruise, because he is a complete like workaholic, not only reads Interview with the Vampire, he reads every single Lestat book, all of them, because Anne Rice loved Lestat, really loved this character. So she wrote other books explaining Lestat's point of view on all these other things, like who he really was, why he did things that people thought were villainous, his whole psychology. So Tom Cruise comes to this movie with this whole interior psychological background of this character that even his director and his co-star don't have, right? And don't care about.
Right.
In a way, Interview with the Vampire is a bad movie because the whole time you're watching it, you're supposed to be on Louis' side. And you're supposed to be like, yeah, Lestat's such a bad guy. But he's so charismatic and he so deeply sticks up for that character and what that character believes in. He's kind of funny. He's fragile. He desperately wants a family. He wants Pitt and Kirsten Dunst to be his family. He gives him so much depth and humanity that you watch that movie and you're like, what the fuck is Louis' problem? Like, Brad Pitt sucks in that movie because he didn't do his homework. He didn't do his work. He didn't come prepared. Tom Cruise came prepared.
He understood the assignment, you could say.
He did. So this is why it's ranked as high as number 2. It's not a great movie. He's amazing because to me it is one of the best examples of Tom Cruise bringing everything to the table. And at the end, after all of this hate, Anne Rice took out a 2-page spread in Variety saying she was wrong and that he is her Lestat.
Wow.
He won, man. He won.
He won, yeah. And he beat Daniel Day-Lewis, too. Kind of got him back for the Oscar snub.
I feel like it's going to continue on, this Daniel Day-Lewis thing. But yeah.
Oh, is that right? Okay. I love, too, that, like, because this is 94, this movie came out. Like, back then, if you wanted to apologize for something or, get a message out there, you had to buy an ad in a paper, right? Whereas now you just go write 100 characters on Twitter and you're done.
You do. Kudos to her, at least, for saying my bad.
For sure. Listener of the show, Anne Rice.
From the grave?
Yeah. They got some earphones down there with her.
By the way, if you're listening to this and you're like, that's crazy, just pull up on YouTube. There's this one scene where Lestat toys with 2 prostitutes and he like sits on the coffin and jumps around them and mocks them as he kills them. If you just watch this 5-minute scene, you will understand why this is one of the best Tom Cruise performances on the planet. It's amazing.
Okay. I need to watch that too. It's been so long since I've seen this. I remember Tom Cruise stealing the show for sure. Okay, let me give you another guess. Is The Firm on here?
No.
I'd never seen it, so I actually don't even know if he's good in that or not.
He's okay. It's when you think of like a bland Tom Cruise, to me, that's one of the blands.
Vanilla Sky.
No, but I admire him for taking it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I've never seen this one. The Last Samurai.
Oh, no, that's terrible. That's one of his like, I'm desperate for an Oscar prestige runs.
Collateral.
That is when I thought you'd get mad at me for not being here.
Okay. I like that movie, but that's not the one. Okay. Well, then I'm going to guess the one.
I get yelled at for that a lot because people are always like, how could you not put that movie on? It's his first time being a villain, which is not true at all. He's been a villain so many times.
Yeah, because I'm looking, that's 2004. So yeah, surely by then. All right. The movie that I was afraid you were not going to include, and I'd have to arrange like a CT scan of your brain for, is Eyes Wide Shut. That's my number 1. Is that number 1?
That's your number 1. It's not my number 1, but it is in my top 10.
Okay. Is that number 7 for you?
It is at 8.
8. Knew it.
But that's your number 1. I admire that. I feel like a lot of people dismiss that one. Tell me why it's your number 1.
That's Stanley Kubrick's last movie. I want to say it came out after he died, or maybe right before he died. Yeah. And that's an extremely different role for Tom Cruise. And he's in it with his, I believe they were married at the time, Nicole Kidman. So there was that element too. But even aside from Tom Cruise's performance, I love that movie. Do you like that movie?
This movie, I had to work to respect, but I'm glad I put in the work. Like, I remember seeing it and wanting to walk out of the theater. Like, the first time that, like, you come into the bedroom and there's a mask on a pillow and the score just goes, like, dong, dong, dong.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I really lost it. But doing the book, I watched the movie over and over and over again. And I finally was able to kind of sink into it and get the tone that it's trying to, because it's such a curious movie. Like, you're watching a guy questing after something that he doesn't ever get.
Right, yeah.
It's almost like a dreamscape nightmare of a movie. A man who, like, wants to get laid so much and can't, And, like...
Yeah. If you haven't seen the movie and you just hear the premise, it just doesn't sound very interesting. But there's so many twists and turns and weirdness in the movie. And the whole movie does feel like a dream. So I think you're right on there. Yeah.
And I love what it represents to his career, because in like 1995, 1996, he does his first Mission Impossible. It's a huge hit. He does Jerry Maguire. He's nominated for his second Oscar. this is the moment where like you would think the rational thing to do if you want to be a huge, big blockbuster star is you stay here and you make another Mission Impossible right away. You do something else right away to capitalize on this mojo. But he's like, no, I'm going to peace out and go to England for 2 years at the peak of my career to be with Kubrick. 2 years, because that's how much he was committed to being an artist.
Wow.
That quest, that like curiosity of him is what I have so admired about the choices he made in the 90s before I think he got scared, before he just became like, McCoy's my guy and that's all I do. That hunger to have new experiences.
That's what I was saying earlier about, I think I said out of left field, because it's on the heels of Mission Impossible, like you said, and Jerry Maguire. You go from those to this, and this movie is so weird and so, like, even though I know it was, I think it was a box office success, it was not like a mainstream kind of feeling movie, you know what I mean? It felt kind of dark and like off in a corner to me.
It's alienating on purpose. Like, it's alienating.
Yeah, alienating. Yeah.
And it's hard for people to watch because, you know, people wanted to watch it at that time to be like, what is Tom Cruise's relationship with his wife really like? But Kubrick is not going to let you make that movie. Kubrick is going to do the alienated version of it. Kubrick is going to make, you know, Tom Cruise do like 96 takes of walking through a door. When you really get into the world of what it's like to be an actor making a Kubrick movie, you start to understand how hard it is to even begin to criticize or to analyze a movie like Eyes Wide Shut. Because like people will sometimes say like, Tom Cruise's performance is crazy and it's all over the place in there. But if you're Tom Cruise and you're doing 96 takes of walking through a door and then like 50 takes of saying hello to your wife, you don't even know what you're doing differently, what to change, how much to change between takes. You could say hello 50 different ways because you don't know what this director wants because Kubrick won't tell you. Kubrick will not tell you what he wants. And then you don't know which hello Kubrick takes. So it's like almost impossible to put together a coherent performance in a Kubrick movie because you have no idea what's actually what he wants and what's going to wind up in the final cut. And it's like so strange, this process. And like you hear from the set, like
drove Shelley Duvall insane as well.
Drove Shelley Duvall insane. He tried to, you know, hurt his marriage, I think, a little bit with Nicole Kidman. Part of it is that Kubrick shot days and days and days and days and days of scenes of like this sexual dream that Nicole Kidman has about a sailor. He made her spend days naked in bed with this like actor, you know, days. And he refused to let Tom Cruise come to set on purpose. And he refused to let her talk to him about it. So he was just like trying to psychologically break them down in a way that I don't think is necessarily cool. It feels like you don't trust your actors to act jealous unless you have to make them jealous. That feels like they're actors. They're here for a reason. They can do that. Yeah, but that he willingly put himself through that experience and to this day has never said anything bad about Kubrick. I admire that artistic quest.
Yeah. And I know one of my frequent sidekick hosts here on the show, Dr. Buster, whenever he makes me sit in a bed naked with a sailor for days on end, just to get the best performance possible. You're right, I do love it. Yeah, Eyes Wide Shut is probably my favorite Tom Cruise movie, honestly.
Wow, I think that puts you in a rarefied echelon.
But I'm a big Kubrick fan, though.
Yeah. Oh, well, we only have 2 movies left.
Yeah, so it's not Valkyrie, right?
No.
It's not. That tone you took, no. Kind of just scrolling here. Is it Risky Business?
Risky Business is on here, yes. It's 7.
7, okay.
Yeah, this is the part that makes Tom Cruise. For the people who think like that, yes, Collateral was his first time playing a villain, casting directors in the early 80s thought of Tom Cruise as a villain. You know, the performance that really puts him. Yeah, because of The Outsiders and also because of the movie Taps, where he plays a guy who like machine guns down his military school. Like, and he's like screaming and cackling and like, rah, ha, 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 like out a window, like firing and trying to kill all these adults. And so when Risky Business comes out, the casting director for Risky Business wouldn't even see him because he was like, Tom Cruise is a filthy psychopath. Why he can't play a middle class kid? Like nothing about Tom Cruise is middle class. And so he refused to even consider him. And they really had to like take him from the set of The Outsiders to Risky Business, put him in a sweater and be like, look, he can be your all-American kid because nobody believed it. That's kind of the irony of us thinking of Tom Cruise as the all-American now is like he was thought of as the filthy psycho. His one other thing, like he had one scene in Endless Love where he was like a pyromaniac. You know, he played crazy guys. But Risky Business is amazing. Like this is the part that makes him.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic film. It's also, I feel like Risky Business, then Cocktail, than Jerry Maguire are kind of the same character in a way, like corrupt people dealing with the finances of American capitalism. But Risky Business is fantastic. And what's wild about it when you go back and like read the reviews is that the director, Neil Brickman, was like the main star, or Paul Brickman, when this came out. And so everybody was just looking at Brickman, like, what's he doing? He's the real artist. They're analyzing it the way you would talk about like an Ari Aster movie or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And nobody really acknowledged Tom Cruise. The only person who did was Ebert. And Ebert was like, I feel like this actor is playing this character as though there's all these things he won't allow himself to say. And that's exactly right. He gives a real performance as this doughy middle-class kid. He puts on weight. He turns himself into more of a nerd. You know, he holds himself very nervously. A lot of this movie is like him not moving, not reaching for things. He plays it stiffly. Actually, if you like Eyes Wide Shut, there's a lot of that kind of here too.
Yeah.
And he really makes this a complete role. And then it turns into like, he's the cool guy in the sunglasses and the underwear. And that's like also ridiculous. You're like, the sunglasses and the underwear shot is how this movie is remembered, as though it's just some sort of idiot teen 80s party movie, but that's not what it is at all. And actually, when he does that scene, he's like drunk and then he immediately like collapses on a couch and kicks his legs up in the air and giggles like a little boy. It's not cool. It's not supposed to be cool.
Wait, that's not cool to you?
He looks like a dying cockroach. He looks like those like old Raid commercials where a guy's dressed like a cockroach and dying. He does that dance. You know, he's playing a character, but it becomes this iconography of 80s cool. And that's the Tom Cruise that we still see.
That's the Tom Cruise effect. And I read that for that movie, the script only said like something like, you know, your character comes in and dances and that's it. So he had no direction outside of that. And so that dance was completely ad-libbed and completely him. He made that dance.
He did.
And it's still remembered to this day.
And Ray-Ban sales went up. They also went up again with Top Gun. The man makes sunglasses cool.
Yeah. Hell of an ass on him too in those underwear.
I know. You gotta love it. He was like, I don't look doughy or young enough. Watch me do it.
He nailed it too. Yeah, great movie. So number one is amazing. This doesn't happen very often, but we've actually managed to save number one for last. And I know it's Rock of Ages where he plays Stacey Jacks, right?
Honestly, I love the way he sings I Want to Know What Love Is in that movie. His duet with Malin Ackerman. It's great. It's a very good rendition, but no.
But not number one, okay.
No.
Then I know it must be the 2017 The Mummy movie, obviously.
I think that's the first genuinely bad movie he ever does. Like, genuinely
I didn't even see it
bad.
because it looked so bad.
Oh, it's terrible. Oh, it's terrible.
Okay, well, we'll be here all night. So why don't you just tell me, what's number one?
What? I thought you were just toying with me. I thought you were deliberately holding it back.
Oh, God, what am I missing? Hang on. Now you got me.
It's such a biggie. It's his third nomination.
I'm scrolling. Magnolia?
Uh-huh.
Magnolia, of course.
That's my number one.
How could I forget?
This is the win that I think he really got robbed of.
Do you know what he lost to?
I think he lost for, was it Michael Caine? There's one time when Michael Caine wins and I get mad. It's either when Michael Caine beats Leonardo DiCaprio or when Michael Caine wins this one.
I'll look it up while
We'll look it up. He should have won this one. Because to me, Magnolia is like the pinnacle of who Cruise was about to be as an actor. And I think losing this one kind of broke him. So while Tom Cruise is in England making Eyes Wide Shut, he has a lot of downtime. And so one of the things I've admire about him is he has had a history of when he sees a young director who makes a cool film, he calls them up and he says, hey, I'm Tom Cruise. And they're like, what the fuck? And he's like, it's me. I just want, maybe write me something sometime. If you write something cool, let me know. Because he had this mojo of always wanting to work with interesting people. He doesn't repeat directors until he works with Cameron Crowe twice. That's the very first time in 20 years. And so he and Paul Thomas Anderson come up together with this like role of, crazy, very, very prescient, like manipulative male sex guru, the character in Magnolia. And it's just, to me, a phenomenal performance. Because you see so many different shades of this man. When he's on stage, he's like Elvis-y, he's like, snarling, he's shaking his hips. And you have this whole scene with this man that's just in complete control. Then you have the whole sequence where he's doing an interview with, I think April is her name, the journalist. And she's not buying so much of his bullshit. And you're having a whole scene of this man who's used to having the world in his control, trying so hard to like get her to like him. He winds up like doing a backflip in his underwear. He is desperate, trying to make this woman like her, trying to be in control of this conversation. And then you have the scene that he has with his father at his deathbed, this just like amazing climax of this movie performance where he goes into the room. His dad that he has problems with is dying on the bed. He enters, he's angry. He's got this like surly, almost teenage peevishness. It's like he regresses. Then he comes closer and closer to his dad and he has this complete emotional breakdown. He cries this one perfect tear, you know, in this unbroken shot.
That's right. I've read about this tear. Yeah.
It is a hell of a performance. Yeah. And it's like he makes it look like he doesn't want to cry. Like, you know, he's trying to keep the tear in, but he's also putting the tear out. Like, this is one of the best acting performances that has ever been put into cinema. And I feel like he deserved the Oscar for this. And if he had won the Oscar for this, he wouldn't always just be that movie star guy who plays the same role over and over again in our heads. We would have actually really given him the respect that he's earned a million times over as an actor that he just hasn't got. And God, I really hope that he goes back to acting after this year.
Don't you think he will?
I don't know. What we need in this landscape is we need a guy with the movie star clout to bring in young talent, help them get that financing, help get their movies get on the radar. He was the rare type of movie star who could make a director.
Yeah.
You know, who could launch a career, who could really at least quadruple your budget, give you your biggest budget of the year if you're Brian De Palma, you know? He had that power and he used it for good. And now he's like closed ranks and he works with McQuarrie. And I just want him to go back to this moment. This is the moment that I want more of. That's my speech.
You dropped a hot take there, though, I think, which is that you think it's one of the best performances in cinema history, which is that's saying a lot. Yeah.
And I mean it. I really mean it. The range that he shows you, the absolute range, because he is best at playing characters who don't want you to see who they really are. He's not like, it's me, I'm all out on the table. He is always,
it's almost a Mario there.
He's like always playing people who have a forward face and then a secret face, and they don't toggle. They show you both of them at the same time. He's not like, I'm loud in public and crying alone. He's not a clown. They're always in conflict at the same time. And that's what's amazing about him.
That's interesting, yeah. So I looked it up. This movie was nominated for 2 awards. So he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. He lost to Michael Caine for his performance in The Cider House Rules. By the way, listen, this is the 1999 Academy Awards. You also had Michael Clark Duncan for The Green Mile, Haley Joel Osment for The Sixth Sense, Jude Law for The Talented Mr. Ripley. I mean, that's a
good one.
A strong list.
I'd still give it to him.
Okay, and then it was also nominated for Best Original Screenplay, and it lost to American Beauty.
Oof, that one hurts. Did you know that there's a lot of ennui in the suburbs? I didn't know that till that movie came out.
Sorry, what was that?
Oh, ennui in the suburbs. I was just being sarcastic. I'm sorry.
That's okay. We do sarcasm here occasionally, so it's okay.
Was that sarcastic?
Or didn't you say, fuck, I don't know.
I think we're out sarcasming each other.
I'm losing it, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, I appreciate that take on Magnolia. I can tell you're passionate about it.
Very much. And just because it also makes me sad. Because I feel when I watch that movie, I see what we've lost in Tom Cruise. The way you feel about Robert Downey Jr.
What we could have had, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you could go through like these forks in the road for so many famous actors over the years and see that same thing, you know, where like, if this had happened this way, maybe we'd be sitting here talking about, I don't know, Chris Rock as the greatest drama actor of all time, right? If something had happened different.
But, you know, at the Oscars nominee luncheon that just happened, you know, I was there and he was like holding court the whole time, center of the room. Everybody wanted to talk to him. He hadn't been to the Oscar nominee luncheon since Magnolia because he hasn't been nominated for anything since Magnolia. He's a producer on Top Gun, so he was there.
Damn right. God damn.
Yeah.
He hasn't been nominated since 1999? That's crazy.
And Steven Spielberg comes up to him. This was caught on video by somebody. He just basically says, you saved the movies this year. You saved us all. God, I just hope that gives him the juice. Because, like, my dream is he works with, like, the Coens. My dream is he works with Tarantino. My dream is he works with somebody new. I want him to work with Ang Lee.
Tarantino,
I want him to work with somebody who's going to push him. He's got to be pushed. And I think he's ready for it.
I do, too.
I think he's ready to go back to who he wanted to be, which is always an actor and not a movie star.
Now I just want to see a Tarantino movie with him.
Right?
That would be fun.
Okay, soapbox off. I'm done.
No, that's why I brought you here for this exact reason. You're doing your job. Okay, well, this was a fun list. Do you want to go back through the top 10 real quick? Just kind of recap.
10, Cocktail. 9, Jerry Maguire. 8, Eyes Wide Shut. 7, Risky Business. 6, all of the Mission Impossibles, but mainly one. 5, Top Gun, only the first one. 4, Tropic Thunder. 3, Born on the 4th of July. 2, Interview with the Vampire. And 1, Magnolia.
Interview with the Vampire, I think, is the biggest surprise for me on this list, other than maybe Tropic Thunder. I gotta admit, I didn't think you'd put that on here. But yeah, these are all great performances. I have one more random fun fact about Tom Cruise. Did you know that he has had several real-life instances of being a hero? In 1998, he heard screams coming from his neighborhood. He rushed to the spot where he chased down robbers who were getting away with a jewelry heist. It's just incredible that this actor worth hundreds of millions of dollars is like putting his life at risk for who knows what. He doesn't even know what he's going to find when he runs out there. It's crazy. He's a maniac. But I think some of that, for better or worse, is like the Scientology part of his brain. That's like, I'm superhuman almost kind of thing.
Well, think about
right?
this. I don't believe in Scientology, of course. But you're like, I'm a kid who was a nobody, and I willed myself to be the #1 movie star in the world. And I also happened to join in a religion that believes that you can will yourself to do anything. And look, It worked for me. He did it. I mean, how do you not believe that?
How do you argue
How do you not believe that? Yeah.
It's kind of like Christian or any religion, really. When things are going well, it's easy to believe in God, right?
Mm-hmm.
But speaking of believing God, I want to give you one last chance to plug your show or anything else going on. Tell people how they can listen to your excellent podcast, Unspooled.
Yeah, totally. Unspooled, we've been doing this for years and years and years. We started by going through every single one of the AFI Top 100 from their most recent list. We thought they'd probably update the list by the time we got to the end, but they haven't. So now we're just inventing our own list, filling in the holes that the AFI list did not have. Filling in. They basically had almost no films from the 90s, none really from the 2000s, except for Lord of the Rings.
Crazy.
So, we are going on side quests to talk about the interesting movies that we find fascinating. And it has been super fun. I do it with the comedian Paul Scheer, the actor, comedian, writer, director. He also does the podcast, How Did This Get Made? And it is basically our curiosity drives the conversation and what we think is interesting. So we're about to do one on Creed. And revisiting that movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we also did John Dielman. We get to do whatever the fuck we want. It's really fun.
It's a real odd mix of movies when you look through the feed on on the podcast feed.
It keeps it interesting.
Really excellent podcast. I highly recommend it for anybody into movies, which is everybody. And I'm going to put links in the show notes for you to go listen to Unspooled.
Awesome. I appreciate that. We actually did one on Top Gun earlier this summer. So I can really get into my arguments about how he's playing layers upon layers.
If you didn't get enough Tom Cruise love or criticism or just thoughts on this show, then you need to go listen to that. Well, Amy, I so appreciate your time tonight. Really think this was a great conversation. I love talking Tom Cruise with you.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you. I know I got a little passionate and carried away, so thank you for bearing with me.
No, of course. What's a good Tom Cruise quote or saying that we could end the show with, Arnold has "Hasta la vista, baby," right? Is there anything like that? Come on, you should know this. You wrote the book.
I should know this. Maybe we should just end it with a dance party like this is Tropic Thunder.
All right, deal.
Apple bottom jeans, just put that on, and then we'll just groove our way out of this podcast. How's that?
I'm in for it. The listeners can't see, but we are both grooving hardcore right now.
I got the boots with the fur. Uh-huh.
You don't have to sing it. We know the words.
Okay. Oh, you good. Okay, good.
Yeah, we're good.
You can sing it for me.
Boots with the fur. The whole club was looking at her. She got the something.
Next thing you know.
Low. There you go.
Beautiful. Thank you. I think we can't do a better outro than that.
The only thing that could be better is if Tom Cruise was here right now doing this with us. And maybe he is in spirit. Yeah.
I think he'd be mad at some of my opinions. Christopher McCoy is my friend. Leave him alone.
No, I refuse to believe that he could be mad at us ever. But Tom Cruise, thank you for listening. All the listeners, thank you for listening. She is Amy Nicholson. I'm Nick Amell. This is Tennis Podcast. I'll see you next time. Bye.